Well, welcome to Out and About with Trev. In last week's episode, I featured the small but important protest against the Adani mine that happened on the steps of Flinders Street right behind me. It was just on a week, or just nearly a week, after the dramatic rallies down at St Kilda, where we had the far right and the left sort of battling against each other, and it was featured in the media. And we also had some of the far right performing goose steps and Hitler salutes, which isn't really good, and it's not a really good thing. The Nazis aren't really what we want here in Australia. So the following day, after the small protest here about the Adani mine, so we had a far bigger protest against the far right. And starting from here at the State Library, they headed down Swanston Street, down to Bourke Street. Then they went up to Elizabeth Street, and then they came back around via La Trobe Street back to here. Before heading off, they had quite a few words to say, and here's a bit of what went on then.
Testing. Oh, awesome. So everyone, we're going to start the speeches up in about 5 minutes. If everyone can bunch into this central area, that would be great, because we want to show the media that there's a lot of people who have come out here today to stand against racism. We want to get footage of a big group of people taking a stand against these Nazis. So if everyone can come and bunch in a bit more, that'd be awesome. Can people over that end as well come more into the centre? Thanks very much, and we'll be starting the speeches in 5 minutes.
So today I'm down at the State Library, and once again we've got another rally happening. It seems to be a focal point for rallies quite often. And I've got Tess, one of the organisers from one of the groups that's helped put this together. What's the main theme of today's protest?
Well, I'm from the Campaign Against Racism and Fascism. We've been trying to stop the growth of some of the far-right neo-Nazi groups in Melbourne for a number of years now. But seeing what happened last Saturday, we thought it was important to try and get as much of the community out today to try and send a message that Nazis are not welcome in our streets and that we're going to come out in solidarity with the African community. And
politicians that want to fly down from Queensland well outside their electorate to condone that sort of thing, I think, look, you know, Nazism didn't do anything good for the world ever, and I don't think it ever will. So I think it's just an ideology that needs to be, sent to the scrap heap. And let's be smarter with it. Let's all get along. We're all from the same planet, and I don't understand some of the extremist views that are out there.
Oh, not at all. I mean, like, one of the issues with Fraser Anning coming down for it and then defending it live on television and saying that if there are future rallies like this, he'll be at them, is that this is no longer just tiny, irrelevant, ignorant people demonstrating in the streets. This is getting the backing of a federal senator who wants to broadcast their message with a national platform and in our parliament. So it's not the sort of thing that you can just stand back and ignore anymore. It's the sort of thing we need people out at these kind of rallies to show we're not going to stand for it.
Well, I think around the world, this whole elitist, top-end greedy corporate. I'm not against the corporate world. I'm a businessman myself. You know, businesses should make money. Corporations should make money, but there's some at the very top, like the top 100 companies, for instance in Australia, that don't pay any corporate tax. I mean, what's up with that?
D2, that does work this morning. D!
Thanks for that.
2, yeah.
That might do it, because...
Okay, 2, yeah.
That's cool, thanks.
P2, yeah. 1, 2, he.
Okay, everyone, we're here today because we're protesting against something that we should not not have to protest about today, that we should not have to speak about today. We're here to take a stand against Nazis on our streets in this city. Shame! As we want to show everyone who saw the footage of Nazis taking to the streets of St Kilda last week, we want everyone who saw that to see that there are hundreds of people who will come out in this city to oppose racism, to oppose Nazism, every single time it rears its head in this country. And we're standing here today protesting on land that does not belong to us. We're standing on the land of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and we're standing on land on which an ongoing genocide is taking place. Shame! We're standing on land where children are still stolen from their parents. We're standing on land where children in this state and in states across this country are locked up in disgusting prisons, are tortured in those prisons. And in June last year, 100% of children in incarceration in the Northern Territory were Aboriginal. Shame. Now, people might not have seen this because it was right before Christmas, but last year, children who were locked up in Dondale Detention Centre again tried to escape. 12 of them ran for the lines. They tried to get out of that place, and the media reported it as a riot. Now, we're standing here today because we're protesting against the disgusting Nazis that took to our streets in St Kilda just last week. These are people who were given confidence by decades of the media in this state in particular, demonising Muslims and now demonising the African community. Every time we come out and protest against Nazis though, the media tries to say, oh no, but they're not really Nazis, are they? They're just, activists. And even after that rally that happened last week on the anniversary of the foundation of the Nazi Party of Germany, that was called by a man who said there should be a copy of Mein Kampf in every single classroom in this country. A rally at which Nazis called a race riot and went there doing Hitler salutes. A rally at which one man brought an SS helmet. After all of that, still, Alan Sunderland, the editorial manager of ABC, came out and said, well, we still can't really call them Nazis, can we? They're more just people doing Hitler salutes. So what do we think of that? If we're not allowed to call those people doing Hitler salutes Nazis, then when are we allowed to start saying the word Nazi? Blair Cottrell, in a text that was published by the Sydney Morning Herald just yesterday, Blair Cottrell said, it'll take years to prepare for the Jewish problem. If any of us come out with that right now, we'd be slaughtered by public opinion. This is Blair Cottrell, the man who organised that rally, the man who was organised to demonise Muslims in this country, the man who was organised to demonise the African population in this country. He's saying we've just got to wait a bit before we take on Jews. So when are we allowed to start calling these people Nazis, if it's not now? Do we have to wait until 11 innocent Jewish men and women are shot and killed in a synagogue, which is what happened in Pittsburgh last year? Do we have to wait until that to start calling them Nazis? We're here today to take a stand. First they came for the Muslims, then they came for the Africans, and now they're saying pretty soon we're going to start taking on the Jews. So are we meant to sit there and say, oh, but we should do what's polite? No, we're here today to take a stand. We're here today to fight racism in this country, to fight Nazism in this country, and to say, no Nazis, never again. So now I'm going to introduce our first speaker of the day, Nakamayat. He's someone who, time and time again, when the Sudanese community is demonised, he's come out and taken a stand. He's fought racism again and again. So welcome him up to the stage.
Thank you! Thank you! Aussie, Aussie! Aussie, Aussie, Aussie! Say no to Nazis! Say no to Nazis! Thank you very much. Last Saturday we saw a rally. We saw a bunch of people that call them patriots. I want to ask you a couple of questions. Do patriots represent you? No. Does Blair Cottrell represent you? No. Does Neil Erickson represent you? No. Thank you very much. They don't represent me either. Today, you could have chosen to be with your families, having coffee, enjoying the nice weather, going to the beach. But instead, you chose to be here because you represent the best of the Australian people. Because you don't want our emerging communities, our minorities, not to be ostracized from our society. The South Sudanese people came to this country to seek a better life. The South Sudanese people did not come to this country to destroy this country. I did not come to this country to destroy this country. I want to make this country a better country. I know so many young South Sudanese people that want to make this country a better country. And that's why we want to send a very strong message to Blair Cottrell, to Neil Erickson, to all the neo-Nazis wherever they are, whether they are here in Melbourne, whether they're in Queensland. That's why we want to send a very strong message to Fraser Anning that you do not represent the finest of what we Australians stand for. So, in short, my fellow Australians, I want to come and speak to you. I wanted to come here today so that I say we in the South Sudanese community respect what this country stands for. We want to make this country a better country. We want to make a positive contribution like the Vietnamese did. We want to make a contribution like all the other migrants that came to this country prior to us. We want to be better people. We want our children to have better opportunities. We want our children to get education, have jobs, get into parliament, be CEOs and so forth. We're passionate about this country as much as any one of you is passionate about this country. For anyone to be out there and say the South Sudanese people do not like this country, it's bullshit. We love this country as much as any one of you. Our young people want to be better people. Unfortunately, in a transition there are always challenges. I have always acknowledged, the South Sudanese people have always acknowledged that we do have challenges. But these our common challenges cannot be confronted through the neo-Nazi agenda. It can only be confronted when Australians come together and say, what can we do to make sure that our disenfranchised young people are given the opportunities so that they become part of this our beautiful community. That's what we want. That's what we want to do from now going forward. I'm going to stop here, but I really wanted to come and say thank you so much for everything that you do for us. We do appreciate. It warms our hearts that you do that every single day. We don't take you for granted. For all the challenges that are there, we're working extremely hard. But be rest assured, in the years to come, this is all going to die down. But we must make sure that Blair Cottrell and Neil Erickson cannot have that agenda and have a bigger stage so that they can propagate falsehoods, they can propagate all the archaic things that we left behind about 60 or 70 years ago. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Another round of applause for Mackay. And all of us standing here today, we stand against Nazism, but we also stand against all racism towards the Sudanese community. We know that there is a disgusting smear campaign going on against these people, coordinated by the likes of Peter Dutton and of Scott Morrison, and to that we say no. Now the next speaker that I'm going to introduce is Sylvie Lieber. Sylvie's speaking from Jews for Refugees, and she's someone who's been fighting this fight for a long time. Please welcome up Sylvie.
Hello everyone. I'm going to start off by hitting you with a few statistics. And if anyone is concerned about crimes committed by Sudanese youth, here are some facts and official figures from the Victorian Crime Statistics Agency that should reduce your fears. In the decade up till June 2017, close to half of all crime in Victoria was committed by a small fraction of offenders. 6.3% of offenders perpetrated 43.9% of recorded incidents. 84% of repeat offenders were born in Australia, indicating there's no link between a repeat offenders and ethnicity. There are about 150 young Africans involved in crimes out of an immigrant African population of 94,000 people. Victoria's overall crime rate fell by 9.9% last year. So it's all a beat-up. There's no problem with young Africans. The problem is with Nazis. In the early 2000s, my daughter and I were in Germany, and we were extremely heartened by all the great reconciliation work the country has undertaken since 6 million Jews and millions of others were murdered during the Holocaust. The Germans have learnt their lesson from the past, and we must always call out Nazism wherever it happens. Never again. Long live multiculturalism.
No racism, no fear! Nazis are not welcome here, no racism, no fear! Nazis are not welcome here, no racism, no fear! Nazis are not welcome here! No racism, no fear! Nazis are not welcome here! No racism, no fear! Nazis are not welcome here! No racism, no fear! Nazis are not welcome here! Thanks very much. Give yourselves a round of applause for coming along today. The next speaker that we're going to have up here is Sam Ratnam. Samantha Ratnam is the leader of the Victorian Greens, and for a long time she's been fighting against racism, both in Parliament and on the streets. Welcome up, Sam.
Thank you so much, every single one of you, for being here today. I'd like to acknowledge that we're meeting on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation and pay my deep respects to elders past, present and emerging. This land was never ceded. Sovereignty was never ceded. We have so much work to reconcile and bring justice for our First Nations people, and they are the issues that we should be focusing on, and instead we have to come together once again to speak about this racism that is taking a grip on the heart of this country. Thank you for being here to call out this horrible racism. We saw this type of racism starting to unfold and get to another level when those thugs last week descended onto the foreshore of St Kilda. We saw scenes that have no place in Australia. But like so many of you who were there also, for every one of them that were there, for every one of the racists that were there were two of you there, reminding everyone, especially our African and our Muslim communities, Australian communities, who are bearing the brunt of this hysteria, that we are with them. We stand in solidarity with them, and we are here to support them. And sadly, we have seen this happen before in Australia. But every time it's happened before, we have beaten them. At the last state election, the Liberal Party right here in Victoria tried the same tactics of trying to use a law and order agenda to confect fear, scapegoat communities and pit people against each other. And you know what Victoria did in response? You voted against them and nearly wiped them out. And here we go again with an election around the corner. We have this cycle on repeat, by being whipped up by these right-wing racists, egged on shamefully by politicians who do not represent us, who do not represent Australia. We all belong here, and you are helping them to make them feel included in this country and stamp out this horrible, vile, dark period of our history that we will win. We will win this, and we will stamp out this racism, keep calling it, keep naming it, keep marching on the street, and we will win. Thanks, everyone. No racism, no fear. Nazis are not welcome here. No racism, no fear. Nazis are not welcome here. No racism, no fear. Nazis are not welcome here. No racism, no fear. Nazis are not welcome here. Now after a couple more speeches, we're going to march down to Bourke Street and then around the block back up here. And so it's time to just get our voices warmed up a little bit. Muslims are welcome, racists are not. 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 Sudanese are welcome, racists are not. Sudanese are welcome, racists are not. Migrants are welcome, racists are not. Migrants are welcome, racists are not. Very, very good. We've got to be a bit louder though when we're going through the streets, so everyone get ready for that. The person that I'm going to announce now is someone who was part of organising the rally that happened last year against the despicable racism of Channel 7. As Sam said, this racism is not confined to the likes of Blair Cottrell and Neil Erickson. This racism is something that comes every single day from Channel 9, from Channel 7, from all of the media who refuse to take a stand against it, and it comes from everyone, well, the majority in our parliament, unfortunately. So welcome up Titan, who's going to talk to us about the racism in our country.
To be honest with you, I'm tired of being tied by the actions of a few, as if I also committed those same crimes. I'm tired of people having to come out and having to say the obvious, having to tell people that racism should not be acceptable in our modern society. I'm tired of my little cousins walking around feeling like they're different, feeling like they don't belong in this country that they were born in because of the color of their skin. I'm tired of people looking at me as if I am a danger to their society because of my height or because of my skin color, things I cannot help. I am proud of who I am, and unfortunately, we do have to come out here. We do have to have a voice. We do have to tell people that that type of ideology, that type of hatred, that type of negativity, racism, Nazism is not acceptable in our modern day society. Last week, I say Canada Beach, we had a vile, horrible display of hatred. We had people come out and do Nazi salutes, people that call themselves patriots. However, we have people that were out there to show them that they are not going into the future with us. That type of thinking is not something we're going to carry on. They cannot bully kids. They cannot inbox children and tell them to come to the Kyoto beach and fight them. It's not a new struggle that we're facing. Last year, years before that, it's been years of the media making my people look like we're some beasts or some horrible creatures or we're just violent human beings. We are the same as everyone that's here. I have my own goals. My mom has her own goals, her own ambitions, her own views for the future. I go to school. I went to school since I was a kid. I've grown up here. I am Australian. I shouldn't have to say that.
Carina Garland is the Assistant Secretary of the Victorian Trades Hall. And part of the reason that she's speaking here today is to say that trade unions in this country stand firmly against racism and stand firmly on the side of all of those who want to stand up against it. Welcome, Carina.
Thank you so much. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land and Wiradjuri people, pay my respect to elders past, present and emerging, and acknowledge that this always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Now, my Italian grandmother, my nonna, remembers when her father was taken away by Nazis to be murdered. My grandfather fought Nazis in Italy, and they both came to Australia to start a new life after fascism destroyed their country. I think it is sickening, ridiculous actually, that all these years later their granddaughter is standing here with all of you fighting against Nazis. This should obviously not be happening right now. But if we think that the fascism that we're seeing and the racism that we're seeing is confined to a few people on the fringes, that's not true. Let's look to Canberra, okay? So in 2014, you might remember the Attorney General, George Brandis, saying in the Senate that people have a right to be bigots, as he was seeking with his government to repeal protections in the Racial Discrimination Act that protected people against hate speech. Shame, indeed, shame. You might remember government senators lining up to shake Fraser Anning's hand when he completed his inaugural speech. Shame. It's probably just easier if I hold it. You might remember the government voting in favour of a motion put forward by Pauline Hanson supporting white supremacy. Shame. I don't think it's hard to imagine the connection between what we're seeing now in St Kilda and what we're seeing in Canberra. Just as the federal government attack workers, they are attacking the Sudanese, Muslim, other communities, and we stand in solidarity with every single one of those groups. Union members and workers are from a range of different backgrounds too, and so attacks on the many different communities represented here today are attacks on workers too. It's all a bit bleak, but I think that there's lots to be hopeful about because we're all here today, and so I want to finish on a hopeful note before we get marching. When our community's rights are under attack, what do we do? Thanks, comrades.
Should not be allowed to attend Nazi gatherings and at the same time run for politics. That shit is not okay. Anning's presence in politics is welcomed by the government, protected by our higher authority. The government essentially paves the way for a hate preacher, an actual terrorist, a racist, a thug, with their backs against the multicultural locals of Melbourne and Australia and their pepper sprays towards them. The high authority of government protects racists in our politics and our police. Institutional racism is a big fat no. Victoria Police stops the car when a black man is driving to ask the Caucasian girl if she's okay, because she's with a black man. Victoria Police, you stop the black guy off the street and ask him if he knows anything about the robbery that went down a few weeks ago. Victoria Police, you stop African kids, asking them stereotypical questions, selling them the portrait you have already painted of them, convincing them that despite being born here, these African kids will always have to answer to a higher Caucasian authority. We respect freedom of speech, but we do not stand for freedom of alienation. We do not stand for freedom of double standards.
We do not stand for freedom of colorism. We will not facilitate the freedom of police and the government authority to make us feel like we owe an explanation for the stigma they associate to the skin, to the colour of our skin, or the clothes that we wear, or the scarf on our head. All the while, racists get away with it. Our words come from blood being shed in fighting tyranny, from the tears and sweat of simply wanting to be equal. And I can assure all the authorities that have ever lived that today and forever we will never stop fighting.
Well, on that message of we will never stop fighting, I wanted to announce a couple of things that are coming up. Because all of us here, I'm pretty sure, stand alongside Indigenous people in their struggle against persecution and against genocide in this country. So everyone who's standing here today should be standing in Parliament House on Invasion Day this year. On the 26th of January at 10:30 a.m. at Parliament House, who will be there? I said who will be there? Good. No racism, no fear. Fascists are not welcome here. No racism, no fear. Fascists are not welcome here. No racism, no fear. Fascists are not welcome here. No racism, no fear. Fascists are not welcome here. Now I'm going to introduce the last speaker, and then we're going to go for a march. We'll go down to Bourke Street, then across to Elizabeth Street, and back up here around the block. The next speaker is Jerome from the Victorian Socialists. Jerome is someone who's been involved in campaigning around all sorts of questions since he was a teenager. He's been involved in the campaign against the Jabiluka mine, and he's been campaigning against racism at the far right for decades, especially Pauline Hanson in the 90s. This is something that we've had to do then, and that now we're having to fight again. So welcome up, Jerome.
Thank you. Well, for anyone who had any doubt, the horrific scenes last Saturday at St Kilda should dispel that doubt, that right here in Melbourne in 2019, we have a living, breathing, goose-stepping, Sikh-hiling, SS-loving, brawling in the streets, fascist movement. And for anyone who's been paying attention today, in history and in Melbourne recently, we can all think of at least 6 million good reasons why we can't let that movement grow and spread. We can't let our brothers and sisters in the Muslim communities and in the African communities live in fear, subject to the hatred of these people. And we know that how we got here, how we got to a state where we had such a movement, is not just down to chance. We can take it back to the genocide against Aboriginal people. We can take it back to the racist origins of this country. We can take it back to white Australia. But we also have to realise for the last 20 years, some of the most powerful forces in our society have worked very hard to create a far-right movement in this country. And I'm talking about the Liberal Party and their dance with Pauline Hanson back in the 90s and more recently. I'm talking about Rupert Murdoch and the Herald Sun and Channel 7 advertising these people as patriots rather than the Nazis that they are. And of course I'm talking about the Labor Party failing to challenge that racism, agreeing to a bipartisan regime of torture directed against refugees. That is what helps to lay the basis for a racist movement in this country. So if that's what brings us here today, the next question is what are we going to do about it? 4 quick points. Number 1, turnout in numbers, and this is a sight for sore eyes. We want the biggest numbers possible, we want the most organisations here possible, and the great thing about today is to see the unions represented here. Because the Nazis can't agree on a hell of a lot. The Nazis can't agree on who's going to be Führer. The Nazis can't agree on who's the master race this week. One thing they can agree on is their hatred of organised labour. So it is fantastic to see Victorian Transport Council here, to see the Finance Sector Union here, to see the Independent Education Union here, to see the Retail and Fast Food Workers Union here, to see the National Union of Workers here, the Australian Services Union, the National Tertiary Education Union, and I know that there's individuals from other unions, including the Rail, Tram and Bus Union and other unions. Building on that will be crucial if we want to push these Nazis back. So that's point number one. Point number two is the propaganda effort to counter the racism and to counter the fascism. Point number three is that we have to counter them directly. Any time they want to occupy physical and political space, we have to be there in numbers to deny them that space. I was interstate last week, so I couldn't get down to St Kilda Beach. But I think we should have a big round of applause to the heroes here who turned out last week to St Kilda Beach and pledge ourselves that we will do the same all this year and into the future. And point number four I think we need is a new sort of politics. A politics of solidarity to counter the politics of hatred and fear that they peddle. And a politics of struggle to counter the politics of despair and racism that they thrive on. Victorian Socialists, of course, is proud to contribute to that politics, as is every single person at this rally. And to finish up, of course, they've got a lot going for them. They've got the media going for them. They've got some of the most powerful forces in our society going for them. They've got the bigot-in-chief in the White House going for them. All we have is ourselves. So let's take it to the streets.
In countries all over the world right now, the far right is trying as hard as they can to build a following and to dominate the streets. Whether it's Charlottesville in America, where Heather Heyer was killed at a protest against the far right, whether it's here right now, whether it's in Brazil, where Jair Bolsonaro has recently taken over that country, the far right is trying to gain traction, and in some of those places, they're able to do it. And in some of those places, anti-racists have been able to win. So are we going to win? Yes. Are we going to win? Yes. Are we going to win? Yes. Let's take it to the streets. No hatred, no fear. Fascists are not welcome here. No hatred, no fear. Fascists are not welcome here. No hatred, no fear. Fascists are not welcome here. No racism, no fear. Fascists are not welcome here. No racism, no fear. Fascists are not welcome here. No racism, no fear. Fascists are not welcome here. Now people can come down this way onto the street. We're going to have a banner leading a march down to Bourke Street. No racism, no fear. 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 No racism, no
And here we go, they're cruising through Bourke Street.
We'd like to send this out to everybody celebrating a birthday today. Hey! Good, son. It's your birthday. Okay, sorry. You don't care with them. I agree with you. Sorry if I'm talking, so I have to listen.
Well, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today, and this always was and always will be Aboriginal land. I'm proud, on behalf of the Rail, Tram and Bus Union Victoria and our members, to extend our solidarity with you all here today and to send on our congratulations for this terrific turnout today, this marvellous show of unity from the whole cross-section of our community against the violence and racism and bigotry of the fascists and the far right. I'd like to send on the apologies of our State Secretary, Luba Gregorevich. She would have liked to be here to speak to us today. Unfortunately, she already had a commitment interstate, but she sends on our best wishes to you all as well. Comrades, I'm proud to belong to a trade union that every day represents the working people who drive our trains and trams, who get us all home safe and where we need to be, who keep our whole public transport system in this state of ours going in all their colours, creeds and diversity. That's who they are. They're workers from all nationalities, from all backgrounds, from all corners of our world. They make our union what it is, and they reflect the society who they serve and transport every day. They are us, we are them. And that's something that the Fraser Annings and the Pauline Hansons and the fascists and Nazis will never be able to change, is that the diversity of working class people in this country is who they are. The diversity of working class people is their greatest strength, it is their wealth. That's something they'll never be able to take away from us. And let me tell you, the accomplishments of Sudanese people, of African people, of migrant people, of Muslim people, of the public transport workers, the people who keep our system going every day, their contributions to our everyday society, to our schools, our communities, our universities, our research, our science, our technology, to our media, as I said, to the public transport system to keep us going every day. Their contribution to our society is something the Fraser Annings and the Paulie Hansons and the fascists and Nazi thugs could only dream of making. Steve Hensley said, we cannot be complacent because they're oppressing Muslims today, but they'll be attacking the organised working class on pickets tomorrow. That's how the fascists and the far right have always operated. They may attack Muslims today, Sudanese people today, people from the African communities today, but they will be attacking all working class people, all trade unions tomorrow to attack our hard-won rights and liberties and our democracy itself. That's why we must always lock arms and stand together in solidarity and unity against their menace. Wherever they go, wherever they speak, we must always supply them with oxygen and stand up for who we are, for the fact that we are our society and our community. So I say now, to finish up, to all of our brothers and sisters in the Sudanese community, to the African communities, the Muslim community, the migrant communities, to non-Gentiles, to LGBTQI people, to women and our Aboriginal and First Nations brothers and sisters. We, as the RTPU, as trade unionists, will always stand with you. We will link our arms with you. We will stand shoulder to shoulder with you always to oppose the threat of racism and the far right on your picket lines, in your communities, at your schools, in your neighbourhoods. And together we must learn to struggle against the far right, against racism and bigotry, and to build a real democracy, a just and human society based on equality and dignity for all. Solidarity.
Black, Indigenous, Arab, Asian and white, unite, unite, unite to fight the right. Black, Indigenous, Arab, Asian and white, unite, unite, unite to fight the right. Thank you so much to everyone who's come out here today, because we've come out here showing there will be someone who stands up. When the Muslim community is under attack, when the Sudanese community is under attack, when there are Nazis on our streets, there will be someone who's standing up. Give yourselves a round of applause for coming along. Now, I've already mentioned the rallies that are coming up after this. Everyone here should go to those rallies. We have to keep up the fact that there are people demonstrating against racism in this country, and we have to grow that movement. So put your name down on the same touch list with the campaign. Come to the campaign meeting that's happening this Tuesday at 6 o'clock, and go to the Invasion Day rally. Come to the next anti-fascist rally, but stay involved and keep on fighting. Thanks very much.
Well, that's a wrap for this week's episode of Out and About with Trev. Next week I've got a slight change of pace. I did a very interesting interview with Josh, who normally plays with Caravan Kids. Downing. I will ask that question, and I've forgotten your name. You're going to Josh. That's right, Josh. Sorry, man.
Where do I stand here?
You can stand right there.
Do I look all right? You look all right?
Well, you look as good as you're going to get, probably.
Yeah. You look all right, yeah.
People have told me numerous times I've got a great head for radio, so so yeah. Well,
I've heard that say.
What can I say?
No. Well, the hat's great. You can't ever go wrong with a cougar hat.
Well, I've actually, on my most recent episode that's uploading right now, I've actually talked about why I wear my Kubra, and it's not just to stand out. Like on a day like today, I have to wear a hat.
Yeah, of course you would.
I've had burned head once in 30 years, and that's how much of an impact. Well, once in 30 years,
That's
once
good.
once was enough.
Once.
Mate, I tell you what, I'll shave your head. You can sit out in the sun for 4 hours and find out. It is not good work. So,
it's good, man.
I was about 20 at the time. It was horrible.
Yeah.
Great colours can watch the show.
You look pretty anyway, man.
Well, we're going to do a quick interview.
Can
Unless
you boys wait for me, or?
We'll be 5 minutes.
It's a press interview, man. Come in and talk.
Yeah, come in, yeah.
They won't.
Oh, YouTube. Oh, what? I'm on YouTube.
All right.
You will be.
I'll meet you there.
Am I? Oh, great.
You will be. So, all right. So
Let
I've
it go
got.
viral.
Oh, I don't know about that. I've only got like 76
Let's
subscribers.
do it. Let's make it viral.
Doesn't matter. It's a start.
I'm going to talk about some deep stuff. I'm going to ask you guys questions.
You can do it. Well, we'll do it. I'll
Just
do
go
the
on.
intro first,
All
and then
right.
we'll get into it. What's your name?
James.
James. All right. So here I am down on Bourke Street, and I've got Josh, who normally plays with the Caravan Kids, and we'll get to that in a minute. Recording. Start recording. Recording. So this is windy mic test late in the day, and we'll go A marker and hang on, and B marker. Okay, just testing all around, testing, checking all around. Level's looking good. It is windy. It is, not saying it's windy here, but it is. Okay, so basically I decided that I should do a bit better test than what I did the other day. I played around with the mics and I went down in the backyard, but there wasn't a lot of wind down there. Today's reasonably windy up here at the moment, although right now it's pretty much quietened off. And I've got a range of mics set up.